indeed. I am so happy to be back. I waited all week for this. Neil Frazier, aka Metamorphosis. Metamorphosis meaning change and ascension when we do it the way we do it. And I know that this is going to be a great presentation. It's intelligence with heart and experience and not just rhetoric. You know, out here in YouTube land, we have many who, how could I say it? It's like driving sideways. You have your own lane. We have people who are on the highway going 80 miles an hour, but they're looking sideways. And they're looking sideways. They can put themselves into a potentially bad situation because all it takes is one split second to find yourself in a sorry state of affairs. And what do I mean by that? You see, I hate to say crabs in the barrel, but many people talk and they don't do. And they're looking sideways at somebody who's doing the damn thing and they don't like it. Now, the thing is, everybody's situation is completely different.
I wonder where that comes from.
Do A or B or C. It's for some to move to Alaska, to move to Czechoslovakia, and it's for some to move to Ghana. Now, I remember when I first left and really left, and folks realized I left. Before that, many were saying, and it got back to me, I don't even think that he got the money to even get a ticket to go out. And there were others who said publicly, the day I left, you see, when you think you're cool with people, they will come out and show their face. And the day I left, a video was made, and I got a long memory. And the title of it basically was, Family, running out to Africa ain't gonna change nothing. It ain't gonna change nothing to run out to Africa. Well, who said I was running? Wow. I came here. And it's been wonderful. And all I want to say is that don't be mad. Everybody can have their ascension, but you'll never get it you looking sideways, and you'll never get it having a heart of defeat for the person that's doing the damn thing. And so on the topic today that you made for today, homelessness in America, the alarming rise of the homeless crisis in 2024. And that's all we can talk about because we just got it to 2025. So everything is still statistically 2024. A comment was made basically, and I deleted it because we don't want these attention-seeking individuals who that's all their options are is to sit down and do a video and not really make any real moves in life. There's homeless all over the planet, even in so-called Africa. Show me where. Organically, where there's homelessness in Africa, where the white man hasn't come here, or the European hasn't come here and messed those areas up. But you have people who want to project that onto a place where I moved here and there were fruit trees growing in the back. You're doing the right thing there, bro. There were fruit trees growing in the back. My meals today came from my yard. I haven't left the house in 5 days. I went and dug up stuff, picked stuff, boiled stuff. That's what you're talking about. Have you ever been here? Have you ever left your state? Talk what you know. But anyway, I'm glad to be here, brother. I just had to get that off my chest.
Hey, that was great. That was great, man.
Media studios in Ghana, West Africa, up in the mountains.
But you know something, brother? Let's put this in perspective, right? What you did, less than 1/2 or 1% of the people, Black people in America, can do. It took courage. It took the support of your queen. But yes, most indeed. Of all, it took the heart. It took the heart of a lion. It took the spirit of an eagle. And these are characteristics that are befitting to you, brother. See, a lot of times because of how we've been taught to hate on each other, we don't see each other, our true spirit. We see what the narratives are about us and you know, this childish gossip. But what you did, brother, it is great. It really showed the way to, and what I think about our younger people now. I know that, you know, there's a certain couple generations of our people that are a little older, that, you know, it pretty much is what it is. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
But you have shown young Black men in particular that if you have the strength of character and heart and look to the real creator in nature, you can go, because this planet belongs to the Black man.
Exactly.
You talking about somebody giving you citizenship into a place that you see how crazy this is, that these criminals with a God complex have set up things in the world to make it the way it is. But yeah, I just wanted to, you know, I know you do get a lot of flack. You know, over the last couple of years, I've been getting, you know, some emails, probably not even close to what you get, but because the more you stand and put yourself out there against those counterfeit spirits, the harder they're going to come at you, and then they're going to use the coons to do that. But yeah, brother, you know, I for one, man, I give praises to you, man, because what you
brother.
did. Oh yeah, man. And,
there's so much
the
more coming.
things you had to face. The
Yeah,
personal
there's a lot of things that people don't understand that had to be faced and dealt with.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying they wouldn't be able to face those things and deal with them, but it's pretty tough. And it's not like that for everybody who comes over here. But you get this energy from people who, when you finally make it and they see that you made it, they turn around and they look at themselves and they really ask themselves in the midnight hour, what am I doing? What have I done? Again, and it's not for everybody to do what I did or go that route. Like I said, everybody's situation is different. So I'm not holding myself up as any iconic whatever.
But I'm just taking action. But taking action like you did, you know, telling everybody, almost like Muhammad Ali, not almost. Muhammad Ali would tell you what he was going to do, and then he did it.
Well, you know,
and so that's what those of us that know you know, that you said what you were going to do. You've always, ever since I've known you, brother, you've had this eagle spirit. Okay, I don't care what nobody else say. You said what you was going to do. You showed us. You kept a record of it, and now people that really know who we are applaud you, brother, and your queen. That's all I'm gonna say. Those other
Thank
people,
you, brother.
I ain't even think about them.
There's a brother who wrote to me, and I'm trying to find his comment. He made a comment, and if I don't get it right now, I'm not going to waste any more time.
You've inspired a whole generation of young brothers, man. I'm telling you, you don't, because they hide accomplishments like people like you. Sorry to cut you off.
Yeah, no problem.
But because they hide accomplishments of brothers like you, especially who oppose their system. This is something that I believe, this was revealed to me, that there are millions of people that listen to LANCESCURV. They're hiding it. They're hiding it, brother.
But the numbers are not going to reflect that. And this is a new channel we're starting all over again because the prior channel was snuffed. And
based on their numbers.
Yeah, I know the numbers are messed up and changed over, you know.
Yeah, they are, man.
That's not ego talking. It's just that's the way it is. There's so much that I know on that cyber level that people who are working along with me have showed me certain things. That's why it doesn't bother me.
Yeah,
you see? Now, there was a comment that was made by a brother who I definitely want to reach out to, and he left a comment and said, Lance, and this is what you said, these younger brothers get inspired.
Mm-hmm.
He said, Lance, I used to ride the 21 bus route in Orlando, Florida with you every night.
Oh.
And he did. I had to go, and I didn't know him by his internet name. So I had to go, and this was, I'm sorry, this was on Instagram when this comment came in. And he said basically that it's amazing that you did what you said you were going to do. I never doubted you, but I knew it, but you said you were going to do what you did. And remember, I'm so much older than this guy. He's got to be in his 20s, maybe late 20s now.
Wow.
And we used to ride. He used to ride with me. Sometimes he'd come back. He wouldn't go home right away. We'd ride and speak inspirational. And this is real, because night after night, and sometimes several brothers would, and we going through what they would call the hood, and several brothers would sit in the front. We'd talk, and I would speak in a way to take them beyond the reality that they're facing right then and there. If they had issues, problems, challenges, it was like therapy. And I had fun doing it because I was giving of myself. And it wasn't because, oh, I'm on YouTube, so I'm trying to sound good and get hits. They know the person they see on YouTube or Instagram or TikTok or Facebook is the same person that rode the bus with them late at night, through the rain, through having to take a detour because somebody got shot in the head, or there was a fight on the bus and I had to stop it. They went through all those things with me, and that had nothing to do with social media. It was social and direct from me to the brothers and the sisters. There was a brother who was in that one particular group one night, and everybody else went home, and he asked me, could you help me? And I said, well, what do you need, brother? He pulled out a tie.
Pulled out a what?
To a job interview the next morning. He lived with his grandmother. His parents were on crack. So he lived with the grandmother, and he didn't know how to tie the tie. I said, here, brother, I'll show you. He says, do you think you can give it? And I showed him. He couldn't get it. So I said, listen, I'm going to tie it for you and just pull it over your head and put it back when you're ready to go in the morning. And he said, do you think you can spare even $1 so I can get a decent razor? I said, well, you don't look like you need to shave in your face, but he was going to shave his hair off because he couldn't afford a haircut. I'm not saying this to be public. I gave him some money for a haircut and a meal and a fare and all of that. And he got the job, and he was so happy. And he would even still on weekends ride with me, right? If I went out videotaping, he would come downtown with me with those original videos, and we hung out. I would always make sure he ate. What I'm saying is that it doesn't take much.
No.
Of yourself and to inspire. When you create a fire, like sometimes out here we were burning debris or boxes or stuff, we take it out in the yard and we burn it. That little match or that little torch, that little flame will spread. And the time it takes to try to put somebody down online or say something that's not a truth is the same way you can go and you can inspire somebody. You can light
the same amount of energy that you're absolutely right, brother, that you're using to tear somebody down, you can use to inspire a young person.
And to further say that, on that, the same energy that you use to try to discourage somebody or throw off some words on them is the same energy that you can turn around on your negative behind and make your situation better. Because every day I wake up, I pretty much feel good, but there's some days I don't feel good all the way.
You're human.
You're human, right? But you know what? You still make progress when you have your mind on that goal that you have. And this is the problem with so many black people. And this is why so many black people are going to fall by the wayside, that have talents and abilities, but they got the wrong heart and they got the wrong mindset. I'm not your enemy, but they make you their enemy because they have that heart where they can't get past the pettiness. They're no different than certain second graders. You got second graders out here with more maturity than some of these grown behind folks who know the truth, speak the word sometime, but never internalize it to manifest something that's concrete. It's not easy out here in this world. See?
Not easy. It's not easy at all, brother. And, you know, for a black man, it's, you know, we have to have, I always talk about what Dave Chappelle said. You know, black men have to have two personalities. You know what I mean? And it's just the way it is. But you know, when you talk like this, whatever brings this out of you, you remind me of my spiritual teacher, Dr. Kojo, rest in power, who was a Native American, Black and Native American scholar. And he always said to me, he said, you know, it's not what you say, it's what you do.
Yes.
People,
Yes.
regardless to the rhetoric, people only remember what you do. They don't remember what you said. They might be able to quote a few things you said.
Right.
But when they look at the life of LANCESCURV, they're going to see this blueprint of what they call success. Really, as a Nibiru spirit, you're here. Okay. And that's not to say anybody's below you, like what we're going to look at today with this structured society. But we're going to deep dive into, I wanted to give a response to this spirit. This happens every 4 years, like you and I were talking privately. This really doesn't change anything for Black people. And we're going to go into the history of this. You know, I always give, one of the reasons why I always give Dr. John Henry Clarke his props, one of the greatest men that ever lived, it's because he told us the truth. And one of the things that he told us was that you will never know the truth about the world until you study, or yourself, European history.
Yes.
And go back and study those that enslave you and why they enslaved you. And this came out of, you know, when he was 18-year-old in Harlem at the Schomburg Center, Black and Puerto Rican scholar and historian of the Schomburg, you know very well, Lance. He said that, I'll never forget this quote. He said that in his great work, Great and Mighty Walk, which they clapped back at Wesley Snipes with taxes because he financed this documentary, which was worth it for him. And I gained a new level of respect for Wesley Snipes after that, because you knew that they were going to come after him. But the statement he made, he said, he asked Arthur Schomburg, he said, I want to know the truth about African history right now and what I need to do to find out about it. He said, sit down, young man. He said, what you're calling African history are the missing pages of world history. He said, go study those that enslaved you and study why it was so necessary for them to remove our people out of the respectful pages of history. Mm-hmm. And then Dr. Clarke said, when he started studying European history and going to these different places, then now he was able to come back and learn, you know, years later, true world history. And we're going to cover some of that today, brother. But I just wanted to give you your props. If we can start out, if you're finished with the video, actually.
Okay, you want to start out with the video? Sure.
Yeah, let's start out with that. You were finished with what you were saying?
Say it again?
Are you finished with what you were saying?
Oh, basically, you know, I'm going to have a whole lot to say these next few days. And,
yeah,
you know, I'm going to just pour out my heart in a way that's inspirational. And again, I'm doing it.
Well, I never knew anybody from New York that didn't do that. My ex-wife.
But, you know, I'm also hard on myself and require a lot of myself on a higher standard that I keep to myself. I'd rather show you the results, but I love the struggle to ascend. That's all I'll say. I love it. Yeah. And if you can't get down like that in your personal life, no matter what it is, you're not going to make it. And it's not necessarily a struggle, right?
No, it's not.
It's almost like you don't feel it. And I'll say this and I'll keep it decent. You know
what I call it, brother?
Yeah.
Cerebral warfare.
There you go.
Yeah.
But see, when you're in the pursuit of ascension, to break it down for the brothers who don't understand what that means, it's that when you're pursuing going higher, it's so rewarding that you don't even realize the pain of struggle that you're going through until after. And you say, oh my God. So I compare it and I'll say one word to knee burns, that in the pursuit of something, you didn't realize your knees were burning up and a little bloody when you get up. We'll leave it at that. But okay, brother, we're going to play that video.
Okay.
And you know what I mean. But
I know what you mean.
All right, we're going to play this right now. Let me
okay, thank you.
Let me get this straight here as far as
okay. And the videos, the visuals are set as well.
Say it again.
The visuals are set as well.
Oh yeah, everything's set. Everything's set for you there, brother.
All right.
Everything's set. Okay, we're gonna do it like this.
Okay.
Let me just take this banner away so you can see the full screen. If I can do it all in one click, that'll be cool, but you gotta click this and click that. Now let's bring this to full screen and we'll be set. And we're going to click this. Now, why
the
is
beauty of having a new professional studio.
According to the Department of Housing and Urban Development, an estimated 2 million people were experiencing homelessness on a single night in 2023. This represents a significant increase of 15% compared to 2022, highlighting a worsening trend. The AHAR report reveals that nearly 60% homeless people were reported living on the streets, in cars, or in other places not meant for human habitation, facing harsher conditions and greater vulnerability. The number of chronically homeless individuals in America has reached alarming heights. Over 440,000 people in the United States were estimated to be chronically homeless. This constitutes nearly 22% of the total homeless population, highlighting the significant portion grappling with long-term homelessness. The National Alliance to End Homelessness reports that families with children make up about 30% of the homeless population. An estimated 186,100 children experienced homelessness on a single night in January 2023. This translates to a concerning 16% increase compared to 2022, and a staggering 77% increase since 2006. These statistics reveal a growing crisis, disproportionately impacting children of color. The recent surge in migrant arrivals in the USA has placed a complex strain on social services, particularly in the area of homelessness. U.S. Customs and Border Protection reported a record-breaking number of encounters at the U.S.-Mexico border in fiscal year 2023. These encounters, exceeding 5.2 million, surpassed the previous year's high. However, this number includes apprehensions of individuals attempting unauthorized entry, not just total arrivals. When we consider legal immigration channels, the State Department reported issuing over 13.4 million temporary visas in fiscal year 2023. Demographics of homelessness in America. According to the National Alliance to End Homelessness, while white Americans make up around 76% of the general population, they only constitute about 49% of the homeless population nationally. This translates to a rate of approximately 15 white people experiencing homelessness per 10,000 in the general population. This data suggests that white people are underrepresented in the homeless population, compared to their share of the overall population. While African Americans comprise roughly 13% of the general population according to the U.S. Census Bureau, they make up a staggering 37% of people experiencing homelessness. This disparity is even more pronounced for homeless families with children, where Black families account for over 50%. Similarly, indigenous populations face a disproportionate burden. Native Americans, Alaska Natives, represent just 1% of the U.S. population, but constitute 5% of the homeless population. Cost of homelessness in America. The National Alliance to End Homelessness calculated that in 2021, The U.S. federal government enacted over $51 billion in funding for selected homelessness and housing programs. In a 2015 study, researchers estimated that the total revenues for nonprofits providing shelter to people experiencing homelessness were approximately $13.5 billion, some of which likely includes some federal funding. In 2023, America spent $59 billion through its Homelessness Strategies Department. Most of this was spent on outside contracts, which likely include programs offered by homelessness service providers. According to the National Alliance to End Homelessness report for January 2024, the nationwide homelessness cost should be from $35 billion to $50 billion. A person experiencing chronic homelessness costs the taxpayer an average of $50,200 a year. A 2023 audit by the California State Auditor estimated that the state had spent $32 billion over the past 5 years. This amount includes funding for shelters, rent subsidies, and Project Homekey, a program converting hotels into housing. Despite spending over $32 billion, California's homeless population continued to grow. Here's a list of the 7 most homeless states in America. 7. Massachusetts. According to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, over 89,200 individuals were identified as homeless in Massachusetts in 2023. This number represents a concerning rise, with a 23.4% increase from 2022. Furthermore, these figures only capture those experiencing homelessness on a single night, neglecting the hidden homeless population, individuals couchsurfing or living in overcrowded conditions. The influx of migrants has placed immense pressure on the state's emergency shelter system. Many homeless families in Massachusetts come from countries ravaged by political instability and economic collapse. Seeking safety and opportunity, they embark on perilous journeys, often arriving with nothing but clothes. The Pew Research Center estimated that Massachusetts had around 470,000 undocumented immigrants in 2022. This figure represents approximately 5.3% of the state's total population. The influx of migrants has undeniably impacted existing homeless populations. Shelters are overcrowded, resources are stretched thin, and wait times for permanent housing have lengthened. This has led to concerns that long-term homeless residents may be overlooked in the scramble to accommodate the new arrivals. 6. Oregon. Oregon presents a stark contrast to the growing crisis of homelessness within its borders. While the state represents only 1.3% of the U.S. population, it holds a disproportionately high number of homeless individuals, roughly 3.1% of the national total. According to a 2023 report by Axios, Oregon likely has around 97,000 residents experiencing homelessness. This number represents a record high for the state, with a disproportionate number around 70% living unsheltered on the streets, in cars, or other inadequate housing. The situation in Oregon is further complicated by a rising trend in homelessness. Reports from 2023 indicate an 8.5% increase in the homeless population compared to 2022. The roots of homelessness in Oregon are multifaceted. A significant factor is the lack of affordable housing. Rents have skyrocketed in recent years, outpacing wage growth and pushing low-income residents towards housing insecurity. This is particularly acute in urban centers like Portland, where the homeless population has risen by a staggering 65% since 2015. 5. Texas. Data from the Texas Homeless Network dashboard indicates roughly 103,902 people experiencing homelessness in Texas. This translates to 42,663 households, suggesting a significant number of families facing unstable housing situations. Families with children constitute a substantial segment of the homeless population in Texas. THN reports that families make up approximately 41% of those experiencing homelessness. Roughly 15% of the total homeless population in 2023 were under 18. Texas has witnessed a significant decrease in its reported homeless population over the past decade. The Texas State Affordable Housing Corporation reports a decline from roughly 153,282 people in 2015 to 103,902 in 2022. Between 2017 and 2020, The sheltered homeless population in Texas decreased by 11%, and the unsheltered population by 5%. 4. Washington. According to the 2023 point-in-time count conducted by the state, an estimated 163,200 people were experiencing homelessness on a single night. This number represents a 8,825-person increase from 2022 and reflects a troubling trend. The National Alliance to End Homelessness reports a similar figure of 150,200, highlighting the inherent difficulties in obtaining a precise count. Washington has a significant challenge with youth homelessness. An estimated 33,000 people between the ages of 12 and 24 are experiencing homelessness. Race and ethnicity play a significant role in homelessness rates. Black or African residents, despite comprising only 6% of Washington's population, make up roughly 18% of the homeless population. Similarly, indigenous people are disproportionately affected, with 13% experiencing homelessness, compared to the 4% who identify as such in the general population. White Americans, on the other hand, have a much lower rate, with around 15 per 10,000 people experiencing homelessness. 3. Florida. The most recent data suggests that Florida has an estimated homeless population of 207,200. This represents a decrease from previous years, with a January 2020 count showing 227,200 homeless individuals. While this decline is encouraging, the number remains worryingly high. FCEH reports that only 20.8% of homeless individuals in Florida are chronically homeless, defined as having a disability and experiencing homelessness long-term. Florida's warm climate undoubtedly plays a role in migration patterns. Some individuals experiencing homelessness might be drawn to the state seeking refuge from harsher winters. Recent studies suggest a possible link between rising homelessness and the influx of migrants, particularly from Central and South America. The 2023 AHAR report noted a significant increase in the number of homeless Hispanic, Latino individuals, with many seeking shelter in temporary facilities. According to the Kaiser Family Foundation, an estimated 1.8 million people, or roughly 8% of the state's total population, are immigrants. This diverse group comes from various countries, with Cuba, Haiti, Colombia, Mexico, and Jamaica being some of the most common origins. 2. New York. New York City, a global symbol of prosperity, grappled with a persistent and heartbreaking issue: homelessness. While the exact number is difficult to determine, estimates suggest a staggering number of people lack safe and permanent housing. According to the Coalition for the Homeless, a leading advocacy group, over 303,520 people in New York City lacked a permanent home in March 2024. This staggering number includes individuals utilizing shelters and the unsheltered population. The unsheltered population is particularly difficult to quantify. Estimates from 2019 suggest around 163,600 individuals faced unsheltered homelessness, but this number is likely an undercount due to the transient nature of this population. Adding another layer of complexity are those who are doubled up, meaning they precariously share housing with friends or family due to economic hardship. This group is difficult to quantify, but the Coalition for the Homeless estimates it to be over 200,000 in New York City. 1. California. Recent data in the 2023 point-in-time count conducted by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, over 391,399 people were experiencing homelessness in California. This staggering number represents several concerning realities. Firstly, California holds a disproportionate share of the national homeless population, with slightly less than 12% of the U.S. population. The state accounts for over 32% of the nation's homeless individuals. This translates to a per capita rate of homelessness that is among the highest in the country, with an estimated 0.66% of California residents lacking stable shelter. Secondly, California has the dubious distinction of the highest percentage of unsheltered homeless people in the nation. Over two-thirds, or roughly 223,423 people, sleep on the streets, in encampments, or in vehicles. This number is a stark reminder of the harsh realities faced by many homeless Californians. For context, California has 8 times as many unsheltered homeless individuals as the state with the second highest total. According to the most recent PIT count data 2022, there were 82,544 homeless children identified in California. This number represents only a fraction of the potential homeless child population. School enrollment data paints a more concerning picture. The California Department of Education.
You said something, brother?
No, I was just commenting on the video, even though I've seen it before. It's like, it's still just...
I know. Okay.
Reported that 129,288 students experienced homelessness during the 2021 school year. Life on the streets. Inside, huddled beneath a threadbare blanket, sat Sarah, 19 years old and a veteran of the streets by no choice of her own. Her life wasn't always like this. A year ago, she was a high school senior with dreams of college and a career in art. But when her mom lost her job and their tiny apartment, a downward spiral began. Arguments turned into fights, fights into eviction, and eviction into a sidewalk that became her unwelcome bed. Days were a relentless scramble for survival. Sarah woke before dawn, the city's chill a rude awakening. She'd use public restrooms for a meager toilette, then head to shelters or community kitchens for a hot breakfast, the lines often stretching for blocks. Food pantries offered some sustenance, but fresh produce was a rare luxury. In between it was panhandling. The sting of rejection a constant companion. Enough for a sandwich, maybe a bus ticket to another part of town was a victory. Danger lurked everywhere. Predatory men, both homeless and not, saw vulnerability in her youth. The nights were the worst. Sleep was stolen in fits and starts. One eye open for trouble. Libraries offered a brief respite, a chance to charge her phone, a lifeline to a social worker back at the shelter, and maybe even lose herself in a book, a reminder of the life she'd lost. But Sarah was tough. She had a resilience born of desperation. She befriended other homeless youth, a network of shared experiences and a small comfort in the vast indifference of the city. A local art program offered a glimmer of hope. Using donated supplies, she poured her experiences onto canvases. The vibrant colors a stark contrast to the bleakness of her surroundings. One day a gallery owner spotted her work. He saw the raw talent beneath the grime, the story etched in every brushstroke. He offered her a small exhibition showcasing her art. The night of the opening, Sarah stood awkwardly beside her paintings. The once familiar faces of the city now staring back at her from the canvas. Not with pity, but with understanding. A tear escaped, a mix of sorrow for the life she lost, and a spark of hope for the one she might rebuild. Sarah's story isn't unique. Thousands of young people face homelessness in America, but it's a story of resilience too. A testament to the human spirit's ability to find beauty even in the darkest of corners. It's a story that begs the question: can a society that allows its youth to fall through the cracks truly call itself successful? Homeless encampment bans in America. The legal foundation for homeless encampment bans often rests on municipal ordinances and state laws designed to regulate the use of public spaces. These laws typically fall under the broader category of public nuisance statutes, which grant cities the authority to remove encampments that are deemed to obstruct public access, pose health hazards, or contribute to crime. For instance, the City of Los Angeles enforces Municipal Code Section 5611, which prohibits the storage of personal property in public areas. Similarly, the City of Portland has implemented a set of policies under the One Point of Contact system, aimed at rapidly removing encampments that pose significant health and safety risks. However, these legal frameworks have faced significant challenges in court. One notable case is Martin versus City of Boise, a landmark decision by the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals in 2018. The court ruled that cities cannot criminalize sleeping in public spaces if there are no adequate alternatives, such as available shelter beds. This decision was grounded in the Eighth Amendment's prohibition against cruel and unusual punishment, effectively limiting the ability of cities within the Ninth Circuit to enforce blanket bans on homeless encampments without providing sufficient shelter options. This ruling has set a significant precedent, compelling municipalities to reconsider their approaches to managing homeless populations. Critics of encampment bans argue that these policies merely displace homeless individuals, without offering meaningful solutions to their plight. When encampments are cleared, residents often lose their personal belongings, including identification documents, medications, and items of sentimental value. This displacement can exacerbate the trauma experienced by homeless individuals, and make it even more difficult for them to access services and stabilize their lives. Moreover, the criminalization of homelessness can lead to a cycle of arrests, fines, and jail time, which further entangles individuals in the criminal justice system and hinders their ability to secure housing and employment. Proponents of encampment bans, however, contend that these measures are necessary to maintain public health and safety. By enforcing bans, cities aim to reclaim public spaces for their intended use and encourage homeless individuals to seek help through available services and shelters. Nevertheless, the effectiveness of encampment bans is questionable. Without sufficient investment in affordable housing, mental health services, and substance abuse treatment, the underlying issues driving homelessness remain unaddressed. In many cities, the availability of shelter beds and supportive housing falls far short of the demand. This mismatch underscores the need for comprehensive strategies that go beyond enforcement and address the structural causes of homelessness. Some cities are experimenting with alternative approaches that seek to balance the need for public order with compassion for homeless individuals. For example, the city of San Francisco has implemented a navigation center model, which provides temporary shelter coupled with intensive case management and support services. These centers are designed to be more accommodating than traditional shelters, allowing pets, partners, and possessions, and aim to transition individuals into stable housing. Similarly, Houston has adopted a housing-first approach, prioritizing the provision of permanent housing as a precursor to addressing other issues like employment and substance abuse. In conclusion, the issue of homeless encampment bans in America is complex, involving legal considerations, public health concerns, and humanitarian principles. While bans may offer short-term relief for communities grappling with visible homelessness, they do not provide a sustainable solution to the crisis. Effective strategies require a multifaceted approach that includes legal protections, adequate shelter and housing options, and comprehensive support services. Balancing the rights and needs of homeless individuals with the interests of the broader community remains a challenging but essential endeavor for policymakers, advocates, and citizens alike.
Oh man, great video. Man, Houston, we have a problem. We have a major problem because I don't know, Brother Lance, it looks like my screen is chopped up. I was trying to figure out what am I doing here? But if you could show the banner one more time.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
No problem, brother.
It looks like I'm still in the studio with you and live. If that's the way you want it, that's fine. I was just
okay. Say that again.
So
I have on a solo layout.
Okay, you got me in the little 8mm up here.
Okay, yeah. When the movie was when the video was playing, we were both to the side, and now that it's off, right? Let me see here. Okay. You can see yourself full screen now, right?
I can. It's still kind of chopped for some reason. It may be something to do with it. But it's fine as long as you guys can see me, right?
Yeah, you're the only one that we see on the screen right now.
Okay, great.
Yeah, okay. I don't know what's happening over there, but from my side, yeah, you're on a solo.
Okay, I
never had that happen before, but yeah,
here.
Yeah, I'm out of the screen. You're full screen and center.
Okay. I mean, I don't mind you being on the screen.
No, I'm blocked anyway.
But one of the things that, and again, brother, I want to greet you Monday. as always, is a highlight of the week. And
To me also, brother.
everyone under the sound of my voice. And clearly, well, first I'll comment on, every 4 years, we have this ritualistic behavior that's played out by the aristocracy. But like we were talking earlier, it really doesn't translate down to anything changing for Black people. And the reality and the scheme of things, and we'll cover this today, and one of the reasons why I wanted to show that video is because, again, the media does not show, when you get independent people that are willing to do boots on the ground work, like your favorite term, it makes a tremendous difference. Because then we get a true picture. But when you rely on the media to, give you faith and hope about things, and it's fine to have faith and hope as long as you know what you're having faith and hope for.
Exactly.
Okay. But the reality, every time I go out here or anywhere I go, I see what they show on there. And of course, this is happening in all over the country. So as we see this changing of the guard, that they like to refer to it as, it's really not a change, because the imperial criminality apparatus is still going to be in full operation, because let's face it, they all use, regardless of what party it is, they all use the same financiers to accomplish their goals. One of the important statistics that I ran across today, Lance, and why this situation in 2025, we've got to start. We really have to, because what we do this year is going to have an impact on generations to come. I really believe that.
Yes.
But you have to start with land ownership in this country, which is the foundation of wealth in this country. And of course, we know the land was stolen, taken, whichever word you want to use. But let's look at this report by the Land Report that was recently released. And it recently released its 100 largest landowners in America. And to no one's surprise, there was not one African-American individual or family present on that list. Now, why is that significant? That is significant because when you see like what's happening here in Southern California and homes are burned down, there was a U.S. official that was on TV addressing this issue. And these are his words. He said that when your home is burned to the ground, then the equity in that home is burned to the ground as well.
Exactly.
But here is the kicker with that, is that you're still beholden to the bank for that loan.
Yes.
So if you're going to rebuild, you're going to have two mortgages. Now, they may be able to give you, what do they call it, a pause in payment or something. But let's face it, you're going to be saddled now, instead of having equity that you built up over the years. Now you have incurred another debt, right?
Yep.
So when we look at the apex of African-American land ownership, it was over 100 years ago. That's how long. And see, whenever they give this illusion that Black people are progressing, all we have to do, this is why they always give, tell lies and give narratives about American history. Because when you look at the actual records of American history, it tells you the actual truth of what we're dealing with, like the video we just saw. But it has been over 100 years ago in 1910, well, actually now, when this report was done, it was 100 years ago. But now we're looking at about 110, 15 years. When African Americans owned almost, this is incredible, brother. In 1910, we owned 20 million acres of land.
Wow.
Yeah, wow. That's almost unbelievable, huh?
Man.
That's all.
They did that. They had to stop that. Gradually find out all the reasons to take it from us.
Oh, yeah, no question. They had to do that through imperial criminality. And yeah, today, with all the pomp and circumstances, I accuse America of being a crimogenic society. Okay, I accuse them of that today, amongst all the pomp and circumstance. But here's the kicker. 42 million African Americans own only, get this, because it used to be 1/2 of 1%. Now it's fell all the way down to 0.33% of American lands today. See, this agenda, and as we get into this presentation, we're going to see that this has been a long-standing plan, like the Marshall Plan, in order to put Black people in the condition that they have us in today, while we are the largest consumers. I believe you did a video of spending over $1 trillion, while we're shopping everywhere and spending $1.2 trillion, I believe it was last year. We own 0.33% of the land in America today.
Wow.
Yeah, that's kind of numbing. And as we said, you know, the other reason why that they're doing what they're doing is because they want to try now to give Black people the knockout blow. They've been trying this for centuries, and they're trying everything, even bringing, giving foreign invading armies military grade weapons to try to directly kill our people and our communities. So we have to look at the reality of what's going on. But we talked about the fact that Blacks are going, this reminds you of when it's equivalent to the predatory lending practices against Black people back when we first came out of, even though redlining was still in full effect. So today we're going to cover a very important issue, and we're going to talk about why we see ourselves in the conditions that we find ourselves here in America today, regardless to what they tell you when they show you all of these celebrities and all of these people that are doing things, when we know that we own now we own only 0.33 of a percentage of the land in this country, which is absolutely insanity. And, you know, when they say we own 20 million, that means we own 40 million acres of land. Okay. So this is probably where the concept of 40 acres and a mule for each individual originated from, because we had 40 million acres of land. But we're going to talk about moving forward. We're going to talk about the Civil War II, and that there is a class warfare going on. And this time, the revolution will be televised. And it'll be televised because of social media. And, you know, Gil Scott's favorite song, one of his greatest hits, revolution will not be televised, but this time it will be. And the reason why he was saying it back then is because the forces that control our government and our media were complicit with this. But we're going to look at several things today that are very, very important. And remember what Dr. John Henry Clarke taught us, that we're going to look at the origins of European history that produced the conditions that we as Black people and other people are living in, and the conditions we're living in today. A lot more poor whites are living in this condition as well. But what we see now is, Lance, if you would put that first visual up there, not the one with the comparison to feudalism and corporate capitalism, but the first one that talks about this system. Because
okay,
we're gonna go into European history and why we're under the same system. Oh boy, you got the sharecroppers. Oh, you got the old pictures. I'm talking about the ones I sent you today.
Oh no, I hope I didn't make a mistake, because oh God. Okay, wait now.
Yeah, the ones I sent you today, but it's okay. I'll go into
That is crazy, because on the email that you gave me, I took it right off of all of these here, and I got them in order, but I don't know how I did that, man.
Oh yeah, those are ones we did a couple months ago.
Oh shoot.
The ones I sent you, we're dealing with, but don't worry about it. I'll go into I'll go into what
we'll do in the future, because I made that mistake before. For some reason, it just groups up a different way in my computer, and I downloaded looking at it, and I'm like, they do look familiar, but I was so caught up in getting everything right. A couple days before, we'll confirm, the photos and stuff like that, and I get it right.
Yeah. Okay. No problem, brother. With all the content you deal with, it's no issue.
I'm like the actor Delroy Lindo, who played a West Indian Archie on Malcolm X, the one who tried to shoot Malcolm X when he was out in the street.
Oh yeah.
And he went into the apartment, and
that mathematical
was like, yeah. Did I really get that number wrong? You know what I mean? Because he was on top of things. So I'm beating myself up because, man, I made a mistake. I can't have that happen again.
Yeah, right. And that's the other thing too is the way I look at it, the way they teach us is there is no such thing as perfection in the universe, and partly is because they have taken that away in terms of deception and manipulation. But nonetheless, that one visual was talking about the feudalism system. We don't live under a capitalism system. We live under a feudalism system. And that is because even though we have capitalists that run this system, we're going to talk about today how we got to this point and how this social economic structure of government got to where it is today. So we're going to talk about America's social economic system of government, which is feudalism. And we'll show and talk about what that is today and how it relates to Black people in particular. We have the rich versus the poor. There is no more middle class, at least the middle class that we knew. We have the capitalists versus the US citizens of the US. Okay. And we also have the landowners, which we gave the statistics earlier, versus the mortgage payers. And I talked about what the US officials said about when your home burns down, the equity burns down with it, which is really crazy when you think about it. But when we talk about how it's structured, we'll see exactly why it's that way. And then we're going to really talk about what's going on today in regards to the video that we saw that they're hiding from the American people, that there is an underground world. And we know that they refer to this underground world as useless eaters, that there is a chemical warfare on America's underclass, which are the most vulnerable Americans. And there are people living in tunnels in Vegas and in New York City. And I recently watched documentaries about this as well, Lance. You know, I saw them years ago, but, well, you know, underground in the subway system in New York, yeah, people, they did a medical movie that, what's his name? Gene Hackman played in. I can't, and this English British guy, I think his name is Jack Human or something like that.
Yeah, there was a movie when he was jumping off the train and he kept jumping back on the train, remember?
Yeah, I remember that, but I'm talking about when they went and got these people from this underground underneath the subway system in New York, and they were doing spinal taps on them. They was trying to, I don't know, they was doing some kind of research, and then they would run out in the street naked with just a blanket around them.
Yeah. I can't recall the name, but I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a medical movie, and this is similar to what's going on today. It's just not being reported. But when they showed that underworld or underground tunnels in Vegas, and they talked with some of the people there, and they were talking about the years that they've spent there and how they are completely just forgotten by society, it just makes you look at the reality of the level of criminality that has been perpetrated against a certain class of people in this society. Then we look at the tent towns that we just saw in the video, survival of the fittest, which is the law of the jungle. And we know that they want to try to have, not want, they have our people reverting to this animalistic behavior in many cases. We see this animalistic behavior being carried out, not just by, you know, Black children, but by, you know, all of our young people in a sense. And then we see the older class of people being forced to, you know, fight for survival. And some of the stories were really eye-catching. And how do they do this? How do they maintain this? Cut this here on a little bit. How do they maintain this? They maintain this through a sort of state-sanctioned terrorism. And they use the race soldiers to accomplish this. Because we know that regardless to what they say, a lot of Black people are going to be caught up into this new John Wayne mentality that is taking over the country again. We know this. And a couple of documentaries for references for this is Skid Row, LA, and Tenderloin, San Francisco. So let's go into the presentation today. I just want to read something so that our people will get a true picture of what's really happening in American society today. And when they talk about, we're gonna show what they mean when they refer to making America great again. Because a lot of our people are confused about that. Some people are angry about it. Or when was America great again? But you're looking at it the wrong way. And we're gonna cover that as well. Because what our people don't realize is that the nostalgia that white people yearn for is the number one driving force behind much of their behavior. But yeah, feudalism, which is a social and political hierarchy, which usually the low-ranking aristocrats that are right under the king, who are considered the lords and the barons, they usually owe allegiance to the higher-ranking aristocrat, or the 1%, as you call them, who basically are the monarchs, the landowners, and everybody else are looked at as subjects. So the way that this system worked, and we're going to get into the history of it today, is that the aristocracy, which America has an aristocracy, okay, that is linked. That's why whenever you saw American presidents going to England to meet the Queen, they kissed the ring. There's a significance to that. But the aristocracy is a governmental system where a small, privileged group known as aristocrats hold all the power. The term comes from the ancient Greek words aristos, meaning best, and kratia, meaning power. Aristocrats often have hereditary titles like duke, duchess, baron, or baroness. And one of the visuals showed how they broke it down and compared it to how these names translated to the American corporate multinational executives and the role they play as lords or barons and dukes and duchesses in American society. But they typically enjoy social and economic prestige. And they also hold political and military positions, like in America. They are usually below only the monarch of a country or a nation, or as we know, below the 1%, which when translated is the central banking system. Okay, and look at the Federal Reserve, even Japan. A lot of people don't know this. They're part of the Trilateral Commission, and then the European banking cabal. Okay, so where Black people, you know, and rightfully so, we get emotional about a lot of the things that are happening directly to us in our local communities. But we also have to look at the big picture now. And when we talk about the greatest document that they produced, Europeans produced, you're going to see why. But yeah, this is a governmental system where a small privileged group known as aristocrats hold all the power. Now, in this social hierarchy, the defining characteristics of the aristocracy is land ownership, which we clearly see, political and military power, elite privileges, and generational wealth, as we see in America, is what we refer to as old money. And also they live in grand houses and estates. Okay, and what do the aristocrats love? They love to be entertained, like we're going to see tonight, people from our culture. They love to be entertained for fun, like the fiddler in Roots, in which we always provide, like Dr. Amos Wilson always says, we still have the same fundamental relationship with white people from our very first encounter with them on the plantations. They also like dancing, singing, and sports, and this is how they're entertained. And of course, we know who the entertainers are. So let's dive into this feudalism, which, and I've heard several European historians and scholars make this statement that the Magna Carta is the greatest and most valuable document ever produced. And of course, you know, they always say that, but we know we're talking about the Western world. But Magna meaning great, and Carta meaning charter or document, they say is the most valuable document in history. And what this document, the reason why this document came forward was because of the treatment of the subjects by the two monarchs or kings of that time, which we'll talk about real briefly, and then we'll tie that into what we're experiencing today. But ironically, the as we see the different aspects of the hierarchy under the feudalism system, our government and presidents are at the fourth tier. So, which is about right. But this charter, the Magna Carta, was written and signed by King John, which gave everyone, which said that everyone is subject to the rule of law, including the king. Now, what's interesting is I did some wordplay here because, you know, in American language, you can do that through synonyms, antonyms, and homonyms. But I removed the N out of Magna and I got MAGA. So you look at Magna Carta or the Great Charter, and you look at Project 2025, which after about the first hour and a half, I stopped watching it because what I realized, or really after the first hour, is that now this agenda that has been planned by the aristocracy here in the United States for centuries, they have waited for this moment. Okay. But this was a document that everyone was subject to the rule of law, including the king. And this is what our people get wrong. This is what I was saying earlier, is that they're not talking about any time in American history. What they're talking about is this charter, okay, that they can put forward to elevate them back. Well, not back to, because they've always maintained this position while fooling you about some inclusion. But the thing about the feudalism system is that there was a definitely hierarchy that you could see that was played out in the society. In fact, so here you have the 1% that you call the kings of the monarchs, who are the land owners that ruled over all the subjects. Then you had the lords, the ones who took an oath to the king. Okay, the ones that took an oath to the Federal Reserve, to the IRS, to the Trilateral Commission, to the European Economic Union or banking system. These are the lords, and they control the land ownership, as we saw with the 100 most, the 100 landowners here in America with the most land ownership that didn't include any Black or African-American individual terminology they use in the report, or individual or family on that report. And that speaks volumes. After us owning 40 million, I say 40 million acres. If they say 20, then it's at least twice as much. But An interesting thing happened in 1200 AD. There was a revolt against the aristocracy so let me give that hierarchy again. We have the king or the monarch, okay, or the banking system, global banking system, world banking system, or reserve, whatever you want to call it. And then you have the lords, the ones who take an oath to the kings, to the 1%, to these entities. And then they, are the ones that distribute the land. We saw, get an idea of this with the Homestead Act, when they took all the land from our people and gave it to Europeans coming here. It's similar to that. And then we have, the barons and the dukes and these people who have these titles. That really is just a part of the aristocracy. And interesting under that, not interesting, well, the clergy or the religious, like the popes and people like that, they were in the next hierarchy to keep people under, the system of religion, which when they tell you there's a separation of religion and state, that's not true. They both work hand in hand to indoctrinate the citizens or subjects to terminology they use. But yeah, at that level where the lords in American so-called capitalism, the corporate multinational corporations that are what you would consider lords, and they control the commerce throughout the world through the military-industrial complex. And then you have the clergy, and in the fourth tier, then you have the governments. So the governments of the world don't really run, like the countries, okay? They're like in the fourth tier. And then right under them, you have the knights. The knights are the ones who, in our day and age, would be our professional classes of people who, when you look at the system of redlining, they're in the green zone, the untouchable zone that you and I can't live in or can't get a mortgage there or buy land there. Okay, so they separate you based on that and your zip code. So that's the knight class. They actually carry out the instructions of the lords that own the land. And these are, So right under the knights, and they're the ones that keep their foot on our necks, which in the feudalism system was the lowest socioeconomic class, was the serfs and the peasants who worked the land. Some were allowed, in this system, they even chose who your daughters was going to marry, and then you had to pay them a tax in order for that to happen. And we're going to go into that because this is a very interesting part of history as well. It's going to tie into here. So in 1200 AD, there was a revolt against the aristocracy by the serfs and peasants. And this is where the story of Robin Hood emerges, which is a rebellion against the tyrannical lords. Okay. And an interesting thing about this, we're going to talk about this, but they actually spied on their citizens, on the serfs and the peasants. And the U.S. spies on its citizens. We know this from the guy who worked for the Security Council, Security Administration, or what have you. And he had to leave the country. And we know from him that there's this massive program where they listen into our phone calls, they tap our phones, they take our texts, our emails, all of this stuff. So this is what was going on. That's why I say that you're deceived, okay? Because they've been doing this, as we can see, since 1200 AD. So for centuries, England has been ruled by France. You know, the nice people, probably France too. They've been ruled by France from abroad. William the Conqueror crushed the Anglo-Saxons at the Battle of Hastings, which is, you know, white people never forget their history, okay? That's why you should never forget your history. But this battle at Hastings was a very pivotal battle. When William the Conqueror had other not so nice names for him, he crushed the Anglo-Saxons at the Battle of Hastings. One of the names for him was William the Bastard. He put forth an aggressive and massive land grab, one of the largest from a foreign government in history. But what was important about this land grab, sort of what we see here in America's taking place now, is that he instilled France's form of government, which is feudalism, what we're discussing today, which is really the American system. And that William the Tyrant taxed and spied on his citizens, like we mentioned, was the same thing that's going on today. But he actually spied on the citizens in order to tax them. And in this form of government, the king is the absolute ruler, and every acre of land now belongs to him or her, well, mainly him, the king. But again, this hierarchy was kings, lords or barons, and knights, and then serfs and peasants. Now, there was an interesting, he kept a law of the country that we see in operation today through data mining on social media, what they have done to us over the last 10 years. But during that time, you know, they didn't have the technology we have today, but he had what he called a doomsday book. And this book was a book that its sole purpose was for taxing the people, or what they call the subjects of that land. It was commissioned by King William, the Tyrant, in which he kept a list of all the citizens of the land and everything they owned, including and even down to every pig. So it's the same thing today. All they do is type in your social security number and they have all the data of what you own, unless you're doing things under the table like they do. But for us, they mainly have a dossier on all of the subjects here in America. One of the things we'll see now is the abuse of this by, you know, people who are in that night class that's going to emerge. Okay. And they're going to do this by using the serfs and peasants of the lower class whites who mainly want to maintain some type of dignity, which means as long as we're suffering, then it's okay. But the first thing he did, he was one of the first kings to commission taking a census or surveying the land. And he sent out a surveyor to price all of the land, and it was a way to keep liabilities of the land, in which he could raise taxes if he found out that there were, you know, people with more possessions than others. He could raise taxes if necessary. King John, the French king, then emerges. This is again during the time of Robin Hood, who was mainly a fictional character, which they say was a title for people who took on this rebellious spirit against the aristocracy. But in 1204, King John was defeated in battle. And before this, he murdered his nephew, King Arthur. Then he starved to death the most famous woman in the territory, who was his cousin. So we see this criminal behavior going on for, over a millennium, over 1,000 years. The other interesting thing about feudalism, which was this 1%, this king, this monarch, really abused its power. The justice system, where they taxed you if you were arrested, sort of like now you have to pay a fine. And then they went a little further, where they created false charges, and they trumped up charges, no pun intended, to collect more taxes. So in other words, any misstep you had was an excuse to tax the people, which happens here in America. And his mindset was, you have to pay to buy your justice, which is basically the same thing here. If you can't afford an attorney, then you have to rely on what is a public defender, which is basically at the mercy of the courts. But America's criminal justice system and the judges, all of this is set up and established on this feudalism system. So as we wind down, let's look at basically why we're going to have this Civil War II, why there's going to be a class warfare, and why this is going to be televised over social media. The main reason is because of this dynamic, this class warfare we have between the super rich and the poor. Because from my understanding, some of the people we look at as rich that are losing their houses in this fire, they're feeling the pinch too as well, at least from what they're saying on camera. But this rich versus poor and the elimination of the middle class is going to allow for a lot of abuse. So we're going to have the capitalists, those that are protecting the corporate interests of the multinational corporations in America that operate in other countries and that control our government. We're going to see that the citizens of the U.S. Are going to be in direct conflict with them. And it's going to be moreover a landowner versus mortgage payers. This is going to be a huge, huge battle that is coming. Because what people don't know is that the banks that you deal with are beholden to the landowners. Okay, they are the ones, the deeds are the ones that actually back the banks or give them the ability to maintain. And as I was talking about this underground class of people that are living in these tunnels in Vegas and New York and other cities as well, they're just not really talking about it. This is a permanent underclass in which there is a chemical warfare, such as fentanyl, that is being used to wipe out what they refer to as useless eaters. So, I'm saying to Black folks today, is that it's time for this foolishness to stop, because don't think that they're just coming for people they're trying to deport. They're going to use, when you look at Project 2025, this is across the board going to affect people in this new class that has been created across the board. It's going to affect people, Black people that you consider in the professional class. This is a fact. And then you have the tent towns, which we have a type of law of the jungle situation, or survival of the fittest. How does people eat every day? Where do they shower? Where do they go to use the restroom? How they're basically off the grid. And it's very hard to, unless you have someone reaching down to pull you up. You're talking about pull yourself up by the bootstraps. That ain't happening. And then we talk about the state-sanctioned terrorism against America's most vulnerable citizens, including the homeless. And this is going to be carried out by the Knights, or the race soldiers, the former slave catchers. So we're living in a time now where, when you look at all the pomp and circumstances and all the glitter and glamour by the aristocracy, you have to know that you have to fight for yourself, because the attitude toward, you don't own anything, you don't own any land. You have fiat maybe, okay, but they're telling you you own less than 0.33% of the land in this country, which actually went down in the last 60 years from 0.5%, I believe, based on what Dr. Claude Anderson was saying. So with that, brother, I think I'll come to the end of the presentation today. And you know, one of the things that we really have to look at is that it's time for Black people to become selfish. That's the only way we're going to survive. You know, selfish about what we're doing for self. Because if we don't do that, there are going to be dire consequences. A few of the things that's going to emerge, particularly when they start talking about some form of fiscal management at the government level, we know what that means. The safety net is going to be pulled from under our people. What this creates is a type of animalistic behavior to survive. And we're going to see this, we're going to see more and more of this. We're going to see more and more profiling. We're going to see more and more of incarceration of Black men. We're going to see more and more people turning to addictions to numb the pain, while the aristocracy is going to continue to put before us a lifestyle that, like a carrot dangling on a stick, where we're going to constantly be jumping up at the carrot, but it's always going to be just out of our reach. And this creates a natural state of frustration and anxiety. And you're working harder, but the fiat that you're getting, the value of it is decreasing. I heard somewhere certain people of the aristocracy are buying up gold. They don't want you to be able to put your hand on. And keep in mind, only 3% of fiat that is in circulation. The other 97% is digital, and that means that when they destroy Black people's credit, that you're not going to be, you already can't get major capital for any projects. But yet, you're told to go to church every Sunday and Wednesday, wherever you go, Friday or whenever you go, and hope and believe in the Savior, that the aristocracy and these, what do they call them, Christian nationals have told you is a white God, and you're not privileged. As a result of that, you're not privileged to whatever is meted out from this God for your needs. And so this is why they can step over you and go to church with a Bible and quote scriptures and still have no etheric heart. This is why. And actually, according to your scripts, that this behavior is going to wax colder. And we see this in nature where now, you know, we see the fire, the coldness, the air, the wind. You know, we're going to see the floods and the rain. We see this now because nature is the blueprint for what's going to manifest here in our world. The other major problem is they have depleted the ozone layer. We don't want to talk about this, but this is a big reason for climate change. And this is going to have an effect on everybody on the planet. Those of us that can withstand the power of the sun and radiation, it is what it is. But because of this, we're going to have other weapons pointed towards us by the people who are in opposition to nature. And so we're going to see a manifestation of a lot of things. The thing I want to leave with our brothers and sisters is that you cannot fight them with the weapons that they have. The weapons you have is much greater, and the creative spirit is going to show you that these weapons that we possess is much greater than the ones that are being used against our people. So I hope you're there, brother.
I'm right here, brother.
Oh, great. I'm going to wind it down.
Yes.
One of the things too is, you know, and you know, I get it. Our people have to have faith and hope. What else is there to hold on to? But that is because, you know, all of our ancestors have said to us, do for self, do for self, do for self. And now we're seeing that because we haven't done for self, we've got ourselves in this precarious situation that we may not be able to get out for generations. That there's going to be a level of suffering that will, in terms of psychological anguish and emotional anguish, is going to rival that of the physical anguish on the plantation. Digging in trash cans, doing stuff like that is going to become more prevalent. Yeah, so, but the flip side is that this retribution has already been released. And you know, the imperialists and the criminality that they walk in, no matter how aloof they want to pretend, these entities have a vice grip on them. And so, on the one sense, we are immune to this, but there is also a class of our people that are in lockstep with them. Okay, and it's all going to be revealed because, as we were saying, the plants and the weeds are now the great harvesters here. Okay, the great sower has returned, and it's getting ready to be a harvest. You remember that song by the Isley Brothers, Harvest for the World?
Oh, I love that song.
Oh man, I love that song. I was listening to it the other night. And yeah, so we can sit back, get the popcorn, you know, Sit back, whether you're in a cloud in a mansion or you rather where you're at, you know, just sit back with the popcorn. And as they say, when they do these stories, like with the 10 Commandments, when Moses stood with the staff and say, stand back and see the power of the Lord.
Yeah.
You stand back and see the power of the Netaru right now, and you're going to see something that you had no idea what type of power this is. So peace and love, brother.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. This was a
sir.
real meal, nourishing,
Yes,
fortifying, and positive, pure energy, you know, and that's what it's all about. Because we don't
Yes.
have too much of that in this world today. That's why I look forward to listening to the words that you bring every single week. I'll always be right here.
Yes, sir. And keep the gloves on, keep your belts, and keep swinging. And I'll talk to you again soon.
Definitely. Thank you so much, brother.
Okay,
all right.
brother. All right.
Okay. Much love.
you.